So Tucker Carlson went to Israel to interview the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. And for those of you who don't know, Mike Huckabee has been involved in U.S. politics for a very, very long time. He ran for president at least twice. My first memory of Mike Huckabee is that he ran, I want to say it was in 2007, 2008, in the Republican primary. And he very famously said, we should replace the Constitution with the Bible. I'm not kidding. He said God's law is perfect and man's law can't measure up to God's law. We have to replace the Constitution with the perfect law of the Bible, with God's law. And that, you know, at the time, people, holy shit, like that's an insane thing to say. We're a secular country. We have separation of church and state. We also believe in the Enlightenment and rule of law. And he's like, no, let's the Bible, right? That's how crazy this guy is. He's also basically an end times cultist, where he believes in the apocalypse, he believes in the rapture, he thinks Jesus is gonna come down from heaven on a winged horse to Israel and kill most of the Jews and then convert the rest of them. And this is why he's a hardcore Christian Zionist. This is why. Because he believes in biblical end times, that they're coming, okay? Totally just gonzo mentally, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, no longer with us, like just brain not open for business. There's motherfucking figgy pudding in the place where his brain is supposed to be. Well, Tucker knows this about Mike Huckabee, and he actually grilled him pretty decently here. So there's a lot of crazy moments here. Let's start with this one. Take a look.
How much does it matter what Americans think?
Well, it matters every bit what Americans think. That's why Americans vote. It's why Americans have the opportunity to have free speech. We want them to have that.
Okay, so what percentage of Americans support a war with Iran?
I don't know. Do you know?
I do. I think it's around, I saw the numbers yesterday. I think it was like 21%.
Okay.
Is that enough to have a war with Iran?
We don't live in a world where you have a poll taken to find out whether our policy should be a particular direction. Because
I thought you just said that
that's
we
direct
vote.
democracy. No, we care deeply about it. But on the other hand, do we make the decisions of foreign policy and even domestic policy based on
we
what
care
the
deeply
latest
about
poll
it in
number
what
is?
sense? If we're ignoring it, then in what sense do we, quote, care deeply about it?
Well, I think we care deeply when we see there's a threat.
No, but about Americans' opinions. So you've got 350 million Americans. They voted in this last election on the basis, in part, of the promise no more wars. Okay? So now we're about to have a war, looks like. 80% of people are against it. In that range, let's say 70%, but nowhere near majority support for this war. And it's not direct democracy, but it is a form of democracy. It's representative democracy.
The ultimate form of democracy in our system, in a republic, because we're not a true democracy, we're a republic.
Exactly, right? It's a mediated democracy.
It'll be an opportunity for Americans to vote if they think that we've made the wrong policy decisions. I personally think the president is making the right policy decisions.
But I guess, but you just said it matters deeply what Americans think, and if the overwhelming majority are against it, in what sense does it matter? Because what I hear is it matters what they think, but it really doesn't matter what they think because...
No, you take it in, you certainly ingest that.
And then what do you do with it once you ingest it?
Then you make sure that you have... No,
you just gotta... It goes out the other end, obviously.
So Mike Huckabee does, oh gosh golly, I'm just a simple little southern boy over here, and that's all I do is I try to be down home, normal country boy, and I'm just trying to tell you that I like watching NASCAR and reading the Bible, that's what I do. He's trying to do his whole like, oh gosh golly. He's trying to do his whole little shtick. He's like, by the way, we should do another illegal and offensive war against a country that didn't attack us and stay there for a couple decades. Fuck you. But Tucker is just getting started here. Let's keep going. We got another one. Take a look.
Israel goes to lengths that no other country, including ours, goes to in the middle of an urban war. And yet Israel ended up with fewer civilian deaths in an urban war than any urban war of record.
Literally just a total lie. This is a genocide and an ethnic cleanse. Just lying, but Tucker's going to call him on it.
I didn't know how many civilian deaths there were, so how can you say that?
If you took Gaza's numbers, Hamas's numbers,
you said you don't know what the numbers are.
We don't.
You just told me that. Then how can you say it's a lower number?
But if you took the numbers that they reported, which is like 50,000, 24, 25,000 of those were actual warriors, how many civilians? If you took all of their numbers,
range from 120 to 78. Those ones I just read. I don't know if that's real. I don't know either. I'm asking you.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, those numbers I've not heard, have not read. The numbers that I think are more reportable are somewhere in the 60,000 range.
Where do those come from?
From the Gaza Health Ministry,
which is those
Hamas.
Are invalid numbers.
I think they are. I don't think that they're accurate, but I'm saying let's
You're
just
saying
assume
they're inaccurate, but they prove that Israel's doing a great job.
Let's assume that the most widespread numbers, the largest numbers that have been reported out of Gaza by Hamas.
Yes.
Let's assume they're true.
Bro, the largest numbers are like 600,000 people dying in Gaza. But he's about to say, like, the largest number is like 60 or 70,000.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying they are true, but assume they're true. Let's just take them at their word. Then you still have a lower number of civilians killed than in any urban warfare environment in modern history. Fact.
Is that a fact?
Yes.
What are you comparing it to?
To any urban warfare.
Name one.
Iraq?
Where in
Afghanistan?
Iraq? Where in Iraq? Where in Afghanistan? There aren't many urban areas in Afghanistan. I don't think there was any fighting in urban areas in Afghanistan.
Kabul?
I don't know. Were there pitched battles in Kabul over long periods of time? I don't.
20 years.
In Kabul? I don't.
Throughout all of Afghanistan.
But what were those rates?
You're talking about what are the rates there? The number of people who were killed into the tens of thousands. I'm asking you to.
I don't know the answer. I've never heard of any of this. You brought it up. You said the IDF has killed a lower proportion of civilians in urban warfare than in any urban conflict in modern history. I'd never heard that before. I don't know what are the controls for that. And you said, well, the U.S. military killed more civilians.
Would you agree that the real tragedy was that Hamas continued to force this war?
Hold on. You just once again said that the IDF is more humane than the United States military. You just said that. You said in Iraq and Afghanistan, the U.S. military killed more civilians than the IDF did in Gaza. You just told me. I never heard that before. And my question is, how do you know that? What are those numbers?
And I'm trying to explain to you that there were extraordinary efforts to keep the number of
numbers, do you?
I think they were tens of thousands. I'll get them for you.
Well, you brought it up. That's the only reason I'm pushing you.
But I'm wearing a flag. I work for a country, and you pretended or alleged that somehow I'm not loyal to this and that I'm criticizing my own country, and I'm not.
You just said they did a better job than the U.S. military in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I said, what are the numbers? And you said, I don't know. So on what basis are you making the claim that the IDF in Gaza spared more civilians than the U.S. Army and Marine Corps did in Afghanistan and Iraq? Why are you saying that? Like, on what basis are you saying that?
From the conversations that I've had with the people who fought there. And I don't have the exact numbers for you.
Oh my God, that's like literally hard to watch. By the way, they're all dancing around it. The exact number that Israel admits, this is what they admit. It's not real, but they admit it. They say, we've killed about 83% civilians. Of the people that we killed, which they say is like 60 or 70,000, they go, about 83% of them are civilians. That's what they say. That's what they say. Now, the reality is, for sure, it's over 100,000 dead. I don't know how it could be 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, as high as that 600,000 number. I genuinely don't know once you get over that 100,000 number what it is and what it isn't. I genuinely don't know, but I would definitely say it's at least over 100,000. And if they admit to 83%, motherfucker, that means that the real number is over 90%, probably over 95%. Because what they say is any military age male we are counting as an enemy combatant, as Hamas. And that's just a lie. They count every single military age male like they are Hamas. So that's why the 83% number is such a colossal undercount. They definitely have killed over 90 or 95% civilians. And it should come as no shock. This is the country that after October 7th, they openly said, we're going to cut off all food, fuel, water, and electricity from going to Gaza. So in other words, even though there's only 30,000 or 40,000 members of Hamas, we are going to collectively punish about 2.3 million people who live in Gaza, okay? Never mind all of the horror stories about schools getting bombed relentlessly, hospitals getting bombed relentlessly, UN buildings getting bombed relentlessly, children being sniped in the face. They would play a game where they'd pick a different body part and shoot children in that body part on a daily basis. They pick, do an arm this day, do a leg this day, do the fucking face this day. This is what we know. This is what we know. How many stories have we heard of people waving white flags and they get murdered as they wave their white flag? I mean, they are depraved. And in fact, look, I got a lot of criticisms of the U.S. military, for sure. But let's be honest. We saw the stories early on in Gaza when they were dropping 2,000-pound bombs. The whole point of that being unacceptable is that the U.S. in Iraq was like, we can't use these things anymore. We're going to stop using them because they kill too many civilians. There was definitely more of a consideration for civilians among the U.S. military than the Israeli military. Don't get it wrong. That's like being the tallest kid in kindergarten, right? Like that. We still were way too hapless and nonchalant with killing civilians with our own military. But for sure, Israel is like the epitome of depraved. They are on the same moral level of the fucking Nazis, okay? That's where they are. They don't give a fuck. There's that, remember when they attacked a refugee camp and they dropped a giant bomb, blew up an entire building, killed 100 people, and then they literally said on CNN to Wolf Blitzer's face, they go, there was one Hamas guy in that building, that's why we attacked. And Wolf Blitzer, who's a Zionist, was like, what? You killed 199 innocent people to get one Hamas guy? And they're like, yes. This is who we're dealing with here. This is who we're dealing with here. The lowest of the low. But again, he's not done. He's just getting started. Now let's go to this one. Here you're going to have Huckabee is asked about, why were you giggling with and taking a meeting with a guy who was a proven Israeli spy? The U.S. ambassador to Israel was meeting with a guy who was convicted in the U.S. of being an Israeli spy and stealing our secrets and giving them to Israel. This is a crazy back and forth. Ready?
Jonathan Pollard did something that was terribly wrong. He sold secrets. He shouldn't have done it. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison and spent 30. Actually, I think he was sentenced to maybe more than 30 years, but he spent 30 years in prison. Most people convicted of something similar, which was one count, I believe, would have spent 2 to 4, but he spent 30. I don't have a problem with him spending 30 because I think what he did was despicable. I'm not defending anything about what he did. But even people like the former director of the CIA, a number of other senators on the Senate Foreign Relations of the Senate Intel Committee said that he should be allowed to leave and move to Israel if he wanted to. So it, to me, was not as big a deal that I had this basically courtesy meeting. He wanted to thank me for being nice to him when his wife died.
Imagine for just a second, you have somebody who was caught being a spy for Iran, arrested in the U.S., tried on that, convicted on that, spent decades in prison for that. Then they get pardoned and released, and you have Mike Huckabee casually giggling and meeting with them and having a grand old time. Not in a million years. If somebody was caught being a spy for Russia or Iran or any enemy country, never in a million years would he entertain that at all. But since it's Israel, he sees it, there's no problem here whatsoever. This is a guy, by the way, who said that Israel should threaten to nuke the United States if they don't do what Israel wants us to do for them, do their dirty work and their foreign policy for them. This is a guy who's on tape saying, we should nuke the United States. This is who Mike Huckabee was hanging out with and giggling with.
Advocated for his release when you ran for, I remember it, in 2011, long before he had served 30 years. And I agree with you that there are a lot of people languishing in prison, in our country and in this country, many countries, for longer periods than they deserve. And I think it's a Christian impulse to want to see them free. But this was the greatest traitor in modern American history who sold our battle plans against the Soviet Union, our main enemy in the Cold War, to the Israeli government, which according to our Reagan CIA director, Bill Casey, then gave them to the Soviet Union. So this was the most profound betrayal of the United States in my lifetime. Why advocate for that guy's release before he serves his full sentence?
If that were the case in 2011, it would have been because I had a number of friends that suggested that he had more than served time and he didn't want to live in the U.S. anymore. He wanted to live in Israel. And but my association with him, again, I had never met him until I met him in Jerusalem at a hotel. That was the first time I had ever encountered him.
I'm friends with a million bad people, or I've talked to a million bad people.
I'm sitting here with you. Right. I mean, come on.
I mean, she's the same with tax collectors. So I trust me, do not judge people who are friends or know or enjoy the company of immoral people because it's not an endorsement of their immoral behavior. Pollard is different. I think once you become U.S. ambassador, the representative of the president of the United States in the United States of America in a foreign country, and then you invite not only the most damaging betrayer in our lifetimes, but also a guy who continues to advocate for betrayal. So he gave an interview, as I know you know, in 2021 to Israeli media, in which he said, I would encourage Jewish Americans with security clearances to spy for Mossad against their own country, the United States, because, and I'm pretty much quoting him, all Jews should have dual loyalty. That's not repentance. That's not someone who feels bad about what he did. That's someone who's encouraging American Jews to betray their country. That's pretty heavy, don't you think?
Oh, I do. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think, let's remember, it was President Trump who probably facilitated his departure. And I'm certainly supportive of President Trump. I think you are.
The get out of jail free card. Well, Trump freed the guy who obviously shouldn't have been freed. So, end of conversation, right? Fuck you and fuck him.
He called him a madman after your meeting.
That's why I say Pollard is not, for me, the real issue. It was the fact that he did something that was despicable. I'm not denying that. Of course he did. And he paid dearly for it, 30 years in prison, and he should have. That's what he should have done. No question about that.
But why meet with him in the U.S. Embassy? Your colleagues said they were shocked. They said...
Who were the colleagues that said they were shocked?
Quoted on Background in the New York Times. I think the meeting was in August. This could all be fake. That's why I'm asking you.
Well, the same New York Times said it was a secret meeting. And I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a secret meeting in the U.S. Embassy.
Do you see why the U.S. ambassador hosting a convicted betrayer of his own country who's encouraging Americans to continue to betray their country would seem shocking?
Well, I would say...
Look, I got to be honest, man. Tucker's soft-pedaling it here a little bit. I think there's a decent chance that Mike Huckabee is basically working more for Israel than for the U.S. I think he's Israel first. I genuinely believe that. Because according to his religious ideology, Israel is more important than the U.S. In fact, didn't we cover a story where he kind of admitted to being Israel first recently? I think we did. So maybe that's why Pollard is meeting with him, because Huckabee is on Team Israel over Team U.S. He certainly acts like it. He certainly acts like it with his crazy cult ideology, and he's the U.S. ambassador to Israel. That's crazy.
That it wasn't that you make it sound like I'm hosting a meeting. I simply met with him. I meet with people all the time.
Some can just walk in without a...
No, they have to have an appointment. Of course they do.
Oh, so it is hosting him then.
Well, I don't know if it was hosting, but it was certainly, he was able to come to the U.S. Embassy to have a meeting at his request. I did. And frankly, I don't regret it.
Now Huckabee gets weird about the kids being killed in Gaza.
I wish that none of those people in Gaza had been killed after October the 8th. Well, I say not none of them. I'm glad Mohammed Sinwar was killed. I'm glad that some of those warriors, the people who masterminded and carried out the atrocities of October 7th.
14-year-old Hamas operatives, how do you feel about their deaths?
If they participated in that, then God help them. I'm telling you,
What does
Tucker,
that mean, God help
I don't know
them?
that they were 14 years old. No, but I'm telling you that when someone commits the acts of atrocity and then they hold hostages, if these were your children being held hostage in Gaza, what would you do to get them out?
I wouldn't want to kill 14-year-olds. I'll tell you that.
Let me ask you something. Would you do whatever it took to get your kids back if they were being tortured, raped, starved,
I would
and
not
beaten?
kill children, period.
Well, I'm just telling you.
And I would never make excuses for killing children either.
And I'm not talking about targeting children. I'm talking about...
You told me that 14-year-olds deserve to die because they're working for Hamas.
I'm telling you...
My question is, can you hear yourself?
I do hear myself.
So you think a 14-year-old child has agency? Do you think that he deserves to die because he's being used by adults? Isn't his death a crushing tragedy?
If he's holding a gun and he's pointing it at someone who's trying to save a hostage, and the only way to save that hostage, I'm telling you, war is a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing. And a lot of innocent people
I'm the one who thinks war is a horrible thing.
No. I think what you don't
I'm trying to explain how horrible it is, and you're saying that the 14-year-old deserved to die.
And also, like, the fucking Santa Clausification of Israel, as if they're just like, oh, we're so helpless, and we're so pure, and we're so righteous, and we're just trying so hard not to hurt any civilians. Like, are you kidding me? You guys are the ones goose-stepping and zig-heiling all over the place, and everybody knows it. But I'm still not done, because now we get this one.
In the entirety of the world, there are about 16 million Jews total, and 8 million of them live here. The rest live mostly in New York or South Florida and a few other places.
Okay.
So this is a small population of people. They have connection to this land, historically, biblically.
Do they?
Yes, they do.
If Bibi's family, we know they lived in Eastern Europe. There's no evidence they ever lived here. He's not religious.
But
fucking Bibi's indigenous to Poland. Okay, he is not indigenous to Israel. You know who's indigenous to Israel? Palestinians. Because actually it's Palestine. And Palestinians have been there for a very long time. Okay? That you can trace in DNA. I was born in Poland, but I'm Jewish, so now I have a right to steal the land of a Palestinian. Go fuck yourself.
In what sense
but ancestrally,
how do we know that? Do you have his family tree? No, we don't.
Do you?
He doesn't. So no one does. That's the point. So how do we know that he has any connection to this land at all?
And if there has been a practice of Judaism and a connection to the language, the Bible, the land.
His ancestors.
He said it right there, the Bible. Well, because of the Bible. Because I have this, like, really old book that says I can steal the land of these innocent people, so I'm going to do that because it's the Bible. And I know the Bible's true because it's the Bible. How do we fucking let anybody get away? Imagine somebody did the same shit, but with the Bhagavad Gita. No, I get to steal your house because the Bhagavad Gita. We'd be like, what the fuck are you talking? Like, shut the fuck up. No, you don't. But we accept this with the Bible?
He doesn't practice Judaism in any rigorous way. His ancestors didn't live here. They didn't speak the language, and there's no evidence they ever lived here. So on what basis does he have a right to be here?
Very much speaks the language. He has fought for the land. His family has fought for the land.
You're dodging a very obvious question, which is, where does this right come from? And the reason it's meaningful is because there are a lot of people in the territory that Israel controls today, particularly in the West Bank, who, through genetic testing, we can know their families have been here for thousands of years. We don't know whether they practiced Judaism, whether they were Samaritans, pre-Islam. We don't know that. A lot of them we know have been Christians for 2,000 years. They have less of a right to the land than someone whose ancestors, the only thing we know about them is they lived in Latvia or Poland. They're Eastern European. How does that work?
They're Jewish.
By what definition?
They're Jewish by their
But how do we know they have any
ethnicity.
connection
They're
to
Jewish
the
by
Jews
their
of the,
faith. They're
of the
Jewish
Bible?
by the connection to the language.
Tucker, the answer is he's a Bible fundamentalist, and I think it's the literal word of God, so he's going to allow them to steal the land because of the Bible. That's the answer. Even if you can prove, which you can, through genetic testing, that Netanyahu never had anybody from this region at any point, Huckabee wouldn't give a shit. He wouldn't care. These are not reasonable people. These are not reasonable people.
By the connection to the Torah.
But how do we know that Bibi, specifically Bibi's ancestors, ever lived here? How do we know that?
I'm not sure if I understand your question.
How do we know if
He's short-circuiting.
the Prime Minister of Israel's ancestors ever lived
Maybe I could ask you, how do we know they didn't?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Maybe because he's a lily white bitch. Maybe that. Maybe because it's very obvious when you look at him that he's not from this region of the world. Oh my God.
I mean,
well, it's on the basis of the claim that they did that all kinds of things happen. People are displaced. There's a money flow. I mean, it's a big question. A lot hangs on this. It's not some theoretical thing like, oh, you know, did my grandparents do this or do that? It's like, no, we have a right to be here because my ancestors were here. Okay, how do we know they were here?
I'm totally unable to process what you're trying to get at.
Yeah, because you're in a fucking cult. That's why you're totally unable to process it. You're in a fucking cult, and your religious fundamentalism is blinding you to the fact that you're stealing land from innocent people. Israel is a settler colonial project, a settler colonial European project where they're stealing innocent indigenous people's lands. That's what it is. And they've set up an ethno-state. They've set up an apartheid state. They're doing a genocide in Gaza. The West Bank is up next. They're trying to create a greater Israel. They bomb Lebanon all the motherfucking time. They're the ones pushing for war with Iran. All this is very clear. But since he's a Bible fundamentalist, a Christian fundamentalist, he can't fucking see straight. And he thinks whatever Israel does is justified because in the Bible, they need to have all the land in order for the rapture to begin. We're still not done. Bro, they keep going.
You've appealed to Genesis. Genesis 15 says it's Abram, it's pre-Abraham, it's Abram, receives from God the news that his descendants will inherit the land. And you tell me as the theologian if I'm getting this wrong, but from the Euphrates to the Nile. I think that's right. And that would include like basically the entire Middle East. That would be the Levant. So that would be Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. It would also be big parts of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. It would be, I mean.
So understand what he's saying here. What Tucker's saying here is very important. He goes, look, if you really want to go by the Bible, in the Bible, Israel would not just have all of Gaza, would not just have the West Bank. They would also have basically a colossal swath of the Middle East, which would mean they're taking territory from a multitude of countries that right now are not Israel, right? And he's listing them off. So he's basically going, so what say you? The Bible that you think is the literal word of God and perfect says Israel could have even more land than what they have now, and they could steal it from sovereign countries. And watch, you're going to see Huckabee's reaction. I mean, he should fucking resign. He should resign. There's no way around it.
It would go that far. I mean, it would be a big piece of land, but here's the point.
It would be a lot of places that are now countries.
But this particular area that we're talking about now, Israel, is a land that God gave through Abraham to a people that he chose. It was a people, a place, and a purpose. We can
again, Bible bullshit.
Look at it that way. Christian Zionism. I want to go back because that's where we started.
I'm not going to let you off on this because you have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. And so it is entirely fair for me with respect to ask, what land are you talking about? Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis.
Yeah.
You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all.
Understand something. What he just did is the functional equivalent of said, yeah, let's let Israel create the Fourth Reich. That's what he did. That's what he did. Yeah, okay, exactly. So as soon as we're done with stealing all of Gaza, murdering all the innocent men, women, and children there and building a futuristic AI tech billionaire city where we do biometric screening on everybody and surveil everybody 24/7 and kick out all the Palestinians. So as soon as we're done with Gaza, and then we do the West Bank, and then we finish bombing Lebanon, then we're going to also take parts of Jordan, we're going to take parts of Egypt, we're going to take parts of Saudi Arabia, we're going to take parts of Syria. Basically what he's saying is, yeah, Israel should take all that land. This is what he actually believes. Guys, I know it's hard for people to really wrap their minds around this, but he actually believes the Bible is literally true. He is a fundamentalist. He is an evangelical. And so with that comes certain things. He prioritizes Israel stealing all the land more than anything else because he wants the rapture. He wants end times to happen. In the Bible, they have to have all that land before end times happens. And so every single conception of the way modern society works, the idea of international law and individual rights and freedom and justice and liberty. Mike Huckabee is saying throw all of that out and let's let Israel crusade through the Middle East and go on a murder spree and steal more overthrow governments, steal more territory, build concentration camps, lock up the people who get in the way. This is what he's saying. And he just said it out loud. One more time, man. This is so insane.
What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land because you're appealing to Genesis.
Yeah.
You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all.
He's got to resign. Like, he's got to resign. This is crazy. This is so crazy. And this is like, you wonder why, tourism to the U.S. is plummeting completely. Everybody fucking hates us now. We're being alienated and isolated from the world. And eventually the dollar is going to be dropped as the world reserve currency. And it's because we're being run by a fanatical cult. That's what it is. This is the governing philosophy. Trump's an idiot and a narcissist and a megalomaniac and, self-obsessed and corrupt and all that stuff. But he's surrounded by people like this. He's surrounded by people like this who can steer. They have an ideology. People like Netanyahu, people like Huckabee, and they steer the ship in whatever direction they want. And right now, it's conquest. It's conquest. It's crusades. It's create the greater Israel. And here you have a guy admitting it. Yeah, like at the same time, stop and think about this. At the same time, the billionaires and Trump are working on creating the technocracy in the U.S. and in Central America and South America and in Greenland. So like steal Greenland, steal fucking Panama. They just overthrew Venezuela. They're going for Cuba next. They're trying to he's trying to expand the United States of America. He's doing some Fourth Reich shit here, and he's giving the green light for Israel to do Fourth Reich shit over there. Okay? Crusade, pillage, murder, loot, steal, plunder, take the natural resources, steal the territory, give it all to the billionaire class, and this is what's happening right in front of our eyes. So it literally is like Fourth Reich shit here and in Israel, and they just say it. They just say it out loud. Absolutely disturbing, absolutely disgusting. Mike Huckabee should resign. And it's just crazy to me that this immediately doesn't lead to a massive backlash. The fact that there will be nothing will now happen after this interview, to me is terrifying. Because what else would they have to do? We've already seen them do a genocide and ethnic cleansing. What else would they have to do for people to wake up and realize that this stuff needs to be stopped immediately?
Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.